Okay, so let's go ahead and go over our algebra sheet, Wildcat sheet 1. So I'm actually going to change this 160 in the first question to 180. It just works out a little bit better. So Hallie has 180 cookies to sell at a school bake sale. She sold 4 different types of cookies. The breakdown of her cookies sales are shown below. 1/5 were snickerdoodle, 1/3 were chocolate chip, 3/10 were sugar, and the rest were M&M. How many M&M cookies? Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to figure out how many each of these other kinds were. So I'm going to set up a proportion to figure out how much was in each other batch of cookies. So to go from 5 to 180, I multiply by 36. So on the top, I would multiply by 36, and 1 times 36 is 36. So 36 were snickerdoodle. Then we have 1/3 were chocolate chip. So to figure out what 1/3 of a 180 is, 3 times 60 is 180, and 1 times 60 is 60. So 60 were chocolate chip. Last but not least, I had 3/10 that were sugar. So to go from 10 to 180, I multiply by 18. So I multiply by 18 on the top. 3 times 18 is 54. So 54 were sugar. Now, knowing I have a total of 180 and that this was the total of all the other cookies, I'm going to figure out how much is left. So I have 36, 60, and 54. And when I total all of those, I would get 150. So to figure out how many M&Ms there were, because that's what's left, I'm going to do 180 minus 150, which got me 30 M&M cookies. Okay. Annie compared the number of fluid ounces per bottle of sunscreen to the cost of 4 different brands of sunscreen. The information she gathered is shown in the table. Based on the data, which brand of sunscreen has the greatest cost per fluid ounce? Okay, cost per fluid ounce. All I'm really doing is dividing the cost divided by the number of fluid ounces. And then I'm going to do that for all of them. So W, cost divided by ounces, that's 12 divided by 20. That gets me 60 cents. For X, that was $11.25 divided by 15 is 75 cents. Okay. Y was $6.50 divided by 10 ounces, which was 65 cents per ounce. And lastly, Z, we had $2.50 divided by 5 ounces, giving me 50 cents per ounce. So the greatest cost per fluid ounce, well, the greatest here is our 75 cents per ounce, which was X. A recipe says to use 3 cups of flour to make 48 cookies. What is the constant of proportionality that relates the number of cookies Y to the number of cups of flour used X? So really, I just want to know how many cookies can I get out of one batch of flour, or 1 cup of flour. So to go from 3 to 1, I divide by 3. So down here, I will also divide by 3. 48 divided by 3 is 16. So for 1 cup of flour, you get 16 cookies. Which values from the set, -6, -4, -3, -1, 0, and 2, satisfy the inequality? So I'm going to solve the inequality. Now, you could have gone ahead and just plugged in these numbers for X and multiplied it out and see which one was true. I'm going to solve it and then figure it out from there. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract 3. Positive 3 and negative 3 will cancel. I get -1/2 X is greater than or equal to 5 minus 3 is 2. Now, to get rid of this -1/2 that's being multiplied by X, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is -2/1. Now, a trick about inequalities you have to remember is that when you multiply by a negative, you have to flip the sign. So instead of X is greater than or equal to, it's now X is less than or equal to. And positive 2 times -2/1 is just -4. So X is less than or equal to -4. Well, out of this list, the only numbers less than or equal to -4 would have been -6 and -4 itself. 5 and 6 were the hardest questions on the Wildcat sheet. So basically, they're asking you to write an equation in y equals mx plus b form, where b is your y-intercept, and m is your rate of change. Now, on number 6, it's much easier to see the y-intercept because it's just where x crosses, or the graph crosses the y-axis. Here, it's harder to see because you can't see the points. Now, when the line crosses the y-axis, the x value is 0. So we can use that to help us. But let's start with rate of change. To find the rate of change, I'm looking for the change in y over the change in x. To go from negative 11 to 1, I add 12. And to go from negative 1 to 1, I added 2. So change in y over change in x, our rate of change is 12 over 2, which simplifies to 6. So now I have the equation y equals 6x, because that's our rate of change, I plugged it in place of n, plus b. Now, b is the y-intercept, and we talked about how the y-intercept is when x is 0. So if I look at where x is 0 on that table, it's going to be between negative 1 and 1. In fact, 0 is exactly halfway between negative 1 and 1. Well, if 0 is halfway between negative 1 and 1, the y value should be halfway between these two. Well, what's halfway between negative 11 and 1? If I was to think of it on a number line, that would be negative 5. So our b is just negative 5. Y equals 6x plus negative 5 or minus 5. This one should be a little bit easier because I can already see the y-intercept. I know that the y-intercept is negative 3 because I can see it on the graph. So I just need to find the rate of change. Again, I'm going to do it like I did here in a table with x and y values, but to get those x and y values, I'm just going to pick them off the graph. So I have the point at 0, negative 3. I know that because that's the y-intercept. And then there is another point at 4, negative 6. To go from negative 3 to negative 6, I subtract 3. To go from 0 to 4, I'm going to add 4. Change in y over change in x, our rate of change is negative 3/4. Well, that's my m, that's my b. I should be able to plug into an equation. This is y equals negative 3/4 x plus negative 3 or minus 3. Now on the back, it says the manager of a coffee shop recorded the number of customers who put vanilla creamer or chocolate creamer in their coffee during 1 hour and classified them by age. The results are shown in the table. What percentage of these customers put chocolate creamer in their coffee? Well, when we talk about a percentage, we're always talking about a proportion, okay? Our proportions for percents are always part over a whole and a percent over 100. So I know I'm looking for the percent, so I've already got something over 100 is my missing part. Here I'm just talking about chocolate, so whatever is chocolate should be the part. Since I'm only talking about chocolate, I don't actually care how old they were, so I want the total number of chocolate. Well, 8 plus 6 is 14, so the total chocolate was 14. But now I need the whole. Well, the whole is the total number of people who bought coffee. Well, that would be everybody in the table. So 2 plus 4 is 6, 6 plus 8 is 14, and the total of the whole table is 20. So that's where I got 20. To go from 20 to 100, I would multiply by 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on the top. 14 times 5 is 70. 70% of people who went to the coffee shop had vanilla or chocolate creamer. Number 8, which situation can be represented by this inequality? Well, remember, you always read inequalities starting with the variable. So I'd be reading right to left, which is backwards for us. And when I see that I have the bigger side of the inequality sign closest to the variable, this is really a greater than sign. So in these problems, I'm looking for keywords that mean greater than. I see in answer choice A, I have the words at least. B is at least. C, I have at most. D, I have at most. Well, these words all mean inequalities. However, at least means greater than, whereas at most means less than. And since this is technically a greater than symbol, because we have to read it backwards, I'm going to cross off C and D, because they do not fulfill the greater than sign. Now I'm just between A and B. A says Felicia has 12 buttons in her collection. She will collect 29 new buttons every year. Felicia collects buttons K for K years. For what values of K will Felicia have at least 120? Okay, this every year. That's talking about multiplication. Well, in the problem, am I having 29 multiply? No, I'm not. So A does not look like a good choice. B, Felicia has 29 buttons in her collection. She will collect 12 new buttons every year. Okay, this every is with the 12. That means 12 should be multiplied. Well, that's true because when a number is next to the variable, it means to multiply. So B is our best choice. Number 9, a bookstore offered mystery bags, each containing 12 books. The quantity of each type of book was the same in each bag. A shopper bought 3 mystery bags and found that 6 books were spy novels. Based on the information, what prediction can the shopper make? Okay, if we're talking about bags to books, I can set up proportions for all of these. So in 3 bags, we had 6 books, and A says there will be 4 more spy novels in 8 bags than 6 bags. So I need to know how much in 8 and how much in 6. Well, in 6 bags, to go from 3 to 6, I multiply by 2. So on the bottom, I would multiply by 2. That's 12 books in 6 bags. Now I can't go from 3 to 8, but I could simplify this, dividing them both by 3, and it's really there's 2 books in each bag. So in 1 bag, 2 books. Now let's talk about 8 bags. To go from 1 to 8, I multiply by 8. So then I multiply by 8 on the bottom, and there's 16 books in 8 bags. To go from 12 to 16, I would add 4, so it would make sense to say there's 4 more spy novels in 8 bags than 6. You could go through and do the same process with all the other answers to verify your answer. Lastly, it says solve and graph the following inequality on a number line. So I'm going to solve it like I would an equation, separating the left and the right. I'm currently subtracting 8 from x, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides. That will cancel. I'm left with 3x is greater than 15. 3 is being multiplied by x, so I'm going to do the opposite and divide. Divide both sides by 3. That will cancel. I get x is greater than 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now, the reason I did not flip the inequality sign this time was because I was not dividing by a negative number. It says solve and graph, so I need to graph. I'm going to put 5 in the middle on a number line. Then 6 is 1 above 5, and 4 is 1 below. It is greater than, so it's not equal to, so it's an open circle. And because it's greater than, the arrow will go to the right.